Hello there and welcome to episode 2 of Roller Coaster Chat with Scott and Mike. So today it's not all going to be about roller coasters, funnily enough. We are going to be talking a bit of Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Whether we would keep the ride we're talking about, modernise it, throw it in the bin basically. So what rides are we going to talk about?
We've got Grand National.
Yeah.
Ever a fun subject.
Yes.
We've got Steeplechase.
Yeah.
And we've got River Caves.
So what we're starting with? Grand National.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be the longest, isn't it?
Yeah, go on. We'll be here forever with this one. So
Yeah. So Grand National is, in my opinion, the best woody in the country. Mike doesn't agree. So
I've been tired with the brush on that one on some of the diss tracks.
Yeah, to be fair, on the subject of diss tracks, we'll get to that in a bit actually, because this video is going out when diss tracks are still topical. But Grand National, for me, there is stuff I would change, but I know that you're really not a fan of how it is right now. So what is it you would change? And obviously we're not getting rid of it, I don't think.
No.
I know I'm not.
No, I'm
so,
not either.
No.
I don't want rid of it. No. That's the thing. I want to do everything I possibly can to give it the best chance of being the best ride it can be.
Yeah, go on then. What would you do?
Just wind back 30 years. No, we can't do that. Wind back 30 years. If we can try and get it back to how it used to be in the 90s.
Yeah.
That was, to me, that's what I remember it as, so that's its peak to me.
So how are you going to do it? What we change? What, in your opinion, has to change with the National?
Well, there's two avenues I'm looking to explore here. One is the actual track itself.
Yeah.
The other one is the trains.
Yeah.
Somewhere down the line. Now, potentially, new control system.
Oh, yeah.
Because that control system's never really worked right from the day it was put in.
It's just done a lot of hissing and banging. I think the issue with that, for me, has always been that the National, before those trains, if you queued for it, stood at Burger King by the big one, you'd still be on the National in under an hour.
Yeah, easy.
Whereas now, if you queue from by the fountain, that is an hour. That's the difference.
I think down the bottom of the steps is an hour at times.
It can be, yes. If it's on 4 trains, does it really make a difference?
4 trains don't actually do anything. The only thing it does is it speeds up very slightly in the second set are ready to go and the first lot are cleared.
Yeah.
That's all it does. So you sort of advantage of it is next to none.
You just basically moving people in a different way.
Yeah.
You're just putting bums on seats a little bit quicker. I think somebody I was talking to about this at Pleasure Beach a while ago said I think that the advantage of 4 trains is like 1 or 2 extra trains an hour.
That's nothing, is it?
No, not really. I don't know how true that is, by the way.
No, that's actually, when you analyse that, it's probably right.
Because it does a lot of sitting in the brake room because for whatever reason, the trains can't be dispatched until the other ones are back and unloaded. And I don't know.
And checked.
Yeah.
They have to be checked to make sure there's nothing in them as well on current procedures.
Yeah, so you basically load in, you sit in the train, and then you sit for a good...
If it's me, I've nod off.
Well, that has been seen on camera, I believe.
That has actually happened.
It has.
On a particularly extreme case, that has actually happened.
That's usually after a night out, to be fair. But yeah, I think if there's one thing that we can both agree on with the National for definite is that if something could be done with a computer system, whereas the trains that are in onload can be dispatched before the other ones return. I mean, you've got a big lift hill there that you could sort of...
Exactly.
The only issue with that is you've got... I can't name them because I'll probably get in trouble. You've got certain... they're not even news outlets, are they? They're just things online that report on Pleasure Beach all the time saying that the rides are always breaking down. And if you stop in the National on the lift hill, you're opening yourselves up to that even more.
But if you're going to pander to them every 5 minutes...
Yeah, that's true.
You know, it's... at some point, you've got to think, well, you can't sort of sit there and go, well, we're not going to run a ride as efficiently as it can be, because it might go wrong once a season and it might end up on some silly...
To be fair, actually, thinking about it, Big Dipper quite often stops at the top of the lifter while they sort the other train.
2/3 of the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Regularly it stops.
So why the National can't run like that, I don't know. But again, I think there is more to it than we perhaps know. So that's something we both change. I think we can definitely say straight away we change the operating system 100%, because I do remember the old days of the National where you'd be going up the lift hill and the other trains would be coming back on the little bunny hills and you'd see them.
Well, it's capable of running 6.
Yeah. But
there's enough brakes there to run 6 on it.
I believe it used to do so back in the day.
I believe it actually used to run 8 at one
yes,
point.
It did.
But that would be
chaos.
That would be compromising how many block sections you've got in modern technology. But I'm going out on a limb to say there's enough block sections to run 6 on it.
Well, let's go all El Toro Ryan here. You've got the station, which is where you've got the loading. Yeah. That's a block. You've got the offload.
Onload, offload. Yeah, so
that's 2 separate blocks.
Yeah.
Because offload and onload are 2 separate blocks.
Yes, that's true.
And then you've got the lift hill. So that's
just a block. Is 3.
So that's 3 blocks. I don't know if you can use the set of brakes before the last drop under the tunnel.
Probably not, because my hunch is
so.
that when it stops in them, it then won't go back up.
No, I don't think it would either.
Not without pushing it anyway.
So it has got 3 block zones, which I think that 4 trains is about right for it.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2 on each side, but 4 trains in all. I think you could definitely run 4 more efficiently. And I don't think it's through any fault of anybody that works at Pleasure Beach. This is not us going, the operators are not very good, because it's not.
It's the system.
It's been like this since 2006 when those trains were put on it. And it can be run how it used to be done. It can be. I've got a picture of it from on PBE from 2009 of the trains on the top of the lifter with some coming back. Anyway, we're agreed on that. Let's move on. So what I would change is I would be quite happy for Pleasure Beach to close the Grand National for, say, 6, 7, 8 months, a whole season, to completely retrack it. Whether that means they do it themselves or they do what Kings Island have done and get the Gravity Group in.
Or GCI.
Or
whoever else.
And come in, retrack the whole thing, start to end. I know it's listed, but this is not going against that.
Mm-hmm.
Retrack the whole thing, get the help of somebody like Gravity Group. I'd go with Gravity Group with this. They're quite good at this. Get them to maybe rebank some of the corners, give it a bit more speed going around those corners, and just, modernise it without taking it too far from its heritage. I absolutely adore the Grand National how it is, but there's no doubt about it. It needs something, because the fix they've done on it is only going to be temporary. I mean, look at Big Dipper. They've retracked it a couple of years ago in places, and we were like, best woody in the country. Roll forward to now, and it's quite rough again. So it's only a temporary fix, whereas sort of starting again without removing it, I think you get back to being how it was in the 90s. That's what I do.
It's still interesting to know. I don't know whether whether anyone was able to shed some light on this, but how feasible Titan track would be.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's the listing thing, isn't it?
It's a listing thing, because you're introducing steel to a wooden coaster, and I think a lot of people forget that when they're asking for an RMC conversion as well, because it's introducing more weight onto what is an old structure. An old structure that's built into sand. There is some concrete foundations around the Grand National's footing areas. I've seen them, but it's not all built into concrete. So putting steel, heavy steel, and perhaps heavier trains onto that structure without really changing the structure would probably be a bit too much to ask. But I do think that you could perhaps do it with more wood introduced into it, but then it comes back to the listing.
Yeah.
And I'm not an expert on listing.
No, I don't know anything about listing. I'll tell you, it's not, to say I don't know anything about listing. I've got an idea of how it works and what you can do, but I wouldn't want to be consulted on it because I don't know that much about it.
I just want to know how illegal it is for them to just say, get rid of it.
What's the fine?
What's the fine? What sort of charges would be up against them? Because I think we've discussed this before. Listing roller coasters is just, it's not for me.
No.
It's really not for me. I think it stifles a part.
I think at times they need to move on slightly with the times.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not talking about their RMC it and completely changing the coaster. I'm not about just move. I mean, if you look at, take 1935 to now and look at the difference between it as a coaster in terms of, it runs a lot less trains. Look at the difference in the trains.
Yeah.
Could you imagine running them open-fronted things now with no seatbelts?
No, exactly.
Somebody would be under there like a shot.
Yeah, they would.
Somebody be off the front of that like a shot in current climate.
The problem is, this is exactly what would happen in those trains. You get Exhibit Idiot 1, TikToking like this, and then they go, I'm going to stand up. Bye-bye. That's exactly what you would get. That is why we've got the tight trains on the National, because you couldn't have those open-fronted ones.
Not these.
And also, it's worth remembering as well, if you had trains like Wickerman's, how easy is it going to be for people to put their arms out too far and perhaps catch themselves on the structure? And I think that's another reason why they go with the PTC ones, because of the clearance envelope with limbs.
And because it's run them for a very long time.
Yeah.
And they are the most... They're still a very similar design to the ones it's run for 60 or so years.
Definitely.
Would I look at... This is another point to come on to. When I look at other alternatives at the trains, definitely.
Yeah.
Certainly in terms of weight.
Yeah, I think...
Because I believe those new type PTC trains are much heavier than the old ones. There's a lot, for a start, there's double the restraint mechanisms in them. My
understanding is that those trains were retro sort of fitted to the National. They were built differently to other PTC trains of that style to fit the Grand National's weight structure, because I don't think there's many trains on wooden coasters that have got 3 rows per carriage.
No, there aren't. Most
certainly
of them
not
twos.
Certainly not the modern PTC ones.
Most of them are twos.
Yeah, so I think that certainly comes into it as well. And it makes me wonder if perhaps Pleasure Beach went with the two-row carriages rather than the 3-row carriages. Would it make a difference? Obviously, it'd make the train longer, but I think there's enough space in the station.
But I also think it will potentially make the train lighter.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to have as much underneath it, potentially.
Yeah.
This is the thing, I mean, I'm almost certain, I could be really wrong here, but I'm almost certain that a lot of the problems that's caused with it now is because the current set of trains are a lot heavier.
I think that's what a lot of people have always said.
Yeah, it's like even the divider is chunkier. The restraints are bigger and heavier.
Yes.
Like I said, each row has got 2 restraint mechanisms instead of 1.
Yeah.
The old ones only had 1 restraint mechanism per row because it was 1 bar. So all that adds up.
It does. It definitely does. I think there's definitely heavier trains. And would I change the trains? I don't know. I'd like I say, I'd maybe look at getting...
Investigate it.
Yeah. I'd maybe look at getting it redone to the two rows per carriage rather than the 3 rows per carriage.
There might be, you never know, there might be a some sort of left field option somewhere.
Yeah.
Outside of... Because realistically, we all go... Wooden roller coaster trains, we all go PTC, Flyers, Timberliners.
Yeah, exactly.
And everyone goes, they're the 3 wooden roller coaster trains.
Do you know what we don't want?
Stampedia.
Yeah. Come back coaster trains or Gerstlauer
trains. They're the 2 I don't want.
That's a no from me.
No.
It's a big no.
Because them trains on the Boss were dreadful.
Yeah, the trains on, what's it called now? Mammut at Tripstrill. They were awful. Then you've got things like the trains on Stampeder. They're awful. So we definitely don't want trains with no padding.
Yeah, that's one of the things, isn't it?
That's a no from me. So
can we have the old trains back with the big cushy seats on them because they were really nice.
For me, I'd definitely go with PTC. Concluding what we do with the National, I think I'm actually surprised we're quite in agreement with this. We'd definitely go down the retracking route. Like I say, I'd have no issue with Pleasure Beach saying, look, we're closing it for a year.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't turn into a 3 or 4 year project. If it was done over 1 season, I think everyone would be like, okay, cool, we're getting pretty much a brand new Grand National here without it going too far from what it already is. I'd be up for that. I'd definitely be up for that. And I actually think that's a possibility. I really do.
The refurbishing, the industry's going so much more that way as well, of literally closing coasters for a year and reopening them 2 years after with...
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you about this, and I was wondering if it's worth doing a subject on this, the whole thing. Like, I'm interested in everyone's opinion, not just Mike. I think we might do a video about this at some point, because if we do it now, this video becomes 2 hours long, I'm certain of it. I'm interested to know what people actually think about coasters being retracked. Is there room for that in people's opinions? Would you rather... Like, for example, we're seeing this with a big one every year for the last 4 years. Nemesis now. Obviously, Balder, we've been talking about Balder. That's getting full retrack. I think it's already been done now. The Hulk was done.
Yeah.
And it's like, is this a new thing rather than Parks investing in, Colossus? That's happening.
Yeah.
Thorpe Park as well.
Yeah.
It's like, there was a lot of debate online about Colossus and people saying, get rid of it and stuff. Yeah. It's like, it's just one of those things where, are you happy with it, or would you rather see new rides being built in their place? Because for me, I think there's a place for retracking, but I also think we've got to be careful that it doesn't become, actually, we don't need new coasters.
Easy way out.
Yeah, we'll just keep retracking what we've got.
And then live off the hype for another 5 years when it reopens.
So I think there's got to be a balance. I understand retracking things like the Hulk. I understand retracking things like the big one. I've still got an indifferent opinion on what Nemesis' fate should have been. I'm still not 100% decided. Again, I think that's another topic.
You see, I don't think Python and Efteling is as good after the retrack as it was before it.
I don't.
I think one of the things they did with that was they smoothed some of the elements out, and they took almost the essence of what the coaster was out of it. The bit that springs to mind on that is the corner just before the corkscrews. That used to be the weirdest
the thing is,
angle ever, but...
Like you, I've been on it before and after, and I don't think it... I think it's made it less enjoyable. Like you say, it just almost feels too smooth now for what it is. I actually enjoyed it as it was, but I'd like Arrow Loopers, so...
So do I, for the most part, anyway.
Right, let's move on. Just checking, actually. Retrack, change to the train system. How have we ended up agreeing?
I don't know.
The reason we did that first is because we thought it'd be a healthy debate on that one.
The other way around.
Damn it. Because I think the next two we might be quite agreeable. Right.
Some we might be.
Yeah, a Steeplechase we definitely won't be.
No.
Right, so let's do River Caves then. What would you do with River Caves?
Well, there was a picture surfaced from I believe it's in the education centre.
Yes, it was.
Of an old River Caves boat.
Pleasure Beach Experience event. February 2013, opening day.
It was a really good event, that
one. It was. We got out of the cold for an hour.
That was a very good point.
Yeah.
We spent... I can remember the hilarity of trying to fit the entire group. No, it was a lot smaller than it is now.
Yes, it was.
But trying to fit the entire group around a Velvet Coaster train.
Yeah.
For the group photo.
Yeah, that was
quite funny.
And there was only 44 of us that day.
There weren't that many, was there?
No.
We digress anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
There is a River Caves boat, and it has seat backs.
Yes.
Please.
Yeah.
Please. Because hanging onto that lift hill like that is...
Especially when it stops.
Yeah.
I mean, all right, it's bad enough when you just go on it as an adult, but when you take your son on it, who's like 3 or 4, like my little boy's 4 at the minute, and whenever I take him by the River Caves, I'm like, I've got to hold him up and me up, and I can just feel myself leaning backwards like this. It's like, seat backs, please. There is one boat with seat backs.
Is there?
Yes, there is. Well, there was.
I don't think I've ever seen it. Not recently.
I have been on it.
Not recently, anyway.
But yeah, if there was only ever one thing that changed to River Caves, seat backs would do it. But I'd love to see it get new boats, because they're not. It's basically like sitting on a garden bench without a seat back, and it is quite uncomfortable. And when you've got a lot of weight in it and it's swaying, and I'm not saying we sway, that's what happens.
It just does.
It can't be helped at times when that happens. If there's a lot of weight on one side of the boat, it just moves over, and we have had instances like that because it's not been well loaded. But it's one of those where I'd change the boats, definitely.
I'd fix the sensor on the waterfall thing.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. For context, if you haven't watched the most recent Blackpool Pleasure Beach vlog on this channel, we went to Pleasure Beach in November, didn't we? And it was absolutely pouring it down. So we said, right,
it was freezing.
It was, although compared to now, it's all right.
Tropical.
Yeah, we went on the River Caves to sort of shelter from the rain, and the fountain at the start didn't go off. So we got drenched. So yeah, it wasn't good, was it? But yeah. For me, this might be controversial, but with River Caves, I would modernise it. I would. The thing is, if you look at the Century of Fun and Riding on Rainbows books about Blackpool Pleasure Beach's history, through all the decades, the River Caves was always changed to cover a different part in history. And I wonder if we're at that stage again where Rivercase maybe needs like just modernising. I know it costs money. I know it's not something that you could just do, especially with Pleasure Beach having small teams in engineering. They have a lot of work on their plate anyway. It's something that, again, you look at manufacturers, Sally Dart Rides, that'd be a great option. They're brilliant at this kind of thing. I think they'd be really good at it. I wouldn't change too much of it. I would just perhaps modernise what's in there whilst updating some of the scenes. So I'd keep the bit at the end, but I'd modernise it. Maybe make it a bit more politically correct for this day and age, let's say. And I'd maybe do that with some of the other scenes as well.
There's a few bits in it, isn't there, that you sort of look at and go,
you can't have that in this day and age. But
they're from a bygone era.
Exactly.
Get away with stuff.
But like some of the scenes, I'd just keep them as they are in terms of theme and setting.
You see, the aquarium bit's relatively modern, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's got really modern technology.
Yeah. It's like the dinosaur bit, though. I'd keep that, but I'd change it, how it's done, get new animatronics in there. Maybe.
Yeah, because they're looking a bit tired.
They look very tired.
You can tell the dinosaur sort of jerks, doesn't it? It's not smooth.
Yeah, and I'm going to take it completely off the subject again here. Pleasure Beach Express needs the same.
That really needs something new to it.
Yeah, it does.
Because again, it's some of the bits in it are now getting a bit
tired.
Yeah, tired wasn't the word I was going for, or the element I was going for, but some of the bits in it are starting to get a bit close to the
outdated.
Bit close to the line now, aren't they?
Yeah, and I might look at one of those things like PBE's going soft, but you've got to move with the times.
No.
I think you've got to move with the times. It's one of those things where people from all different backgrounds visit places like Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and I think that rides like that, the Express and Rivercase, should be inclusive to everybody without potentially being offensive. There was some bits the Rivercase ripped out not so long ago for this reason.
Because they've got beyond being what's acceptable in
exactly. And
modern day and age, because most of that stuff's been in there for 40 plus years.
Yeah, it has.
Times have really changed.
So I think, for me, Rivercase is another one of those where I'd say quite a lot needs done with it. I don't want to see it getting removed. It is an absolute classic at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, but if you know your Blackpool
Pleasure... can't really remove it anyway.
No.
It's buried under about 3 layers of other rides.
But if you know your history of Blackpool Pleasure Beach, you'll know that the Rivercase has always been updated to keep with the times, to look back on an old time, but without being offensive. And I think that as much as I like the Rivercase, because there's some bits of it that are incredibly done, I think it just needs bringing into a modern day without changing everything, if that makes sense. I mean, another example of a ride where this is happening is Disney's Splash Mountain. They realised that it's not quite appropriate for this day and age, so they're retheming it completely. I think maybe that's what's needed with Rivercase. Still needs to be a journey around the world. Just change the scenes and make it more modern. Why are we agreeing on?
We agreed on 2. I think we're not going to agree on the other one, though.
What's going on here? This is supposed to be a debate.
We're not. Oh, well, here we go. The grand finale.
Yeah.
Steeplechase.
Bin it.
No.
Bin it.
No.
That's where it belongs, in the scrapyard.
No, my idea for it was to look at new ride vehicles for it.
Yeah.
Because I still, part of me wonders how the current horses get by. When you look at other rides that have been removed for much less infractions or issues or problems, or however you want to put it, insurance and...
Wild Mouse.
Yeah. So if you look at other rides that have been removed for much less reasons because they're supposedly not safe anymore, and then you look at... And I'm not for a second here implying that Steeplechase is unsafe.
I was just going to say, someone from Pleasure Beach would be going, what are you saying?
I'm not for a second implying that. I'm comparing it to sort of the way things are perceived in the modern era. That sort of...
A seatbelt on the face.
A seatbelt mounted 10 foot in the air on a horse.
Yeah.
I still can't work out... Well, yeah. I still can't work out how it's still going like that.
No.
Part of me's glad it is.
I'm not.
But it's not comfortable if you're on the back of it, though. Really not comfortable if you're on the back seat.
There's nothing comfortable about Steeplechase. Literally nothing. The queue line is not comfortable. I hate queuing on steps. I don't like getting on it. because it's just
No, I don't like getting on it either.
I just...
One day, and this happened on the Beast, but one day, the infamous face plant is going to happen on Steeplechase's platform.
Do you know,
and I don't think there'll be a platform left if it does. If I face plant,
maybe a reason to keep going on it, actually, for that reason, to watch you fall over.
Because what happens to me is when I go to get off it in my old age, I struggle to fold my leg back over to get over it, and I sometimes catch my knee on the rubber on the mane on the horse.
I was going to make a rude gesture there, but I'm not going to.
But,
I'm sure if you're watching, you'll know exactly what I was going to say.
But I'd look at modernising the ride vehicle, probably down the line of either what Zamperla or Vekoma offer in terms of single seat.
Or S&S. That was another one you were going to say, because they've done the...
Well, S&S have got a newer version of the horse design.
Has anyone bought one of them yet?
I don't know.
I think the answer's no.
No.
But
I know, obviously, the booster bike seat is pretty comfortable in the grand scheme.
I tell you what else,
and secure.
Mauro rides. They've got their single track type of rides where you actually control it yourself. They saw them at the expo.
Could be quite an interesting revamp or
well, it'd up capacity, wouldn't it? If you had two seats next to you. I know you can't ride a horse with two seats next to each other, but if you refeed
two tracks,
refeed the ride.
Yeah.
Sorry, to a point, but
it'd be an interesting upgrade to the existing ride, and that we were talking about retracking a ride there, or whether it's you've almost got a new ride out of that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You're at the point where the ride experience becomes so significantly different that it almost becomes a new ride experience.
Yeah. I agree with what you're saying. With that would definitely improve.
I mean,
you know what else would improve it?
Well, RFC single rail.
No. I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say the deconstruction team coming in, hacking it down and putting it in a skip.
RFC single rail.
I don't know. There's. I think you could do quite a bit with that space.
There's a lot. It's a big area in it. Yeah. You see, I'm talking of the hypothetically keeping it.
Yeah.
You're just hypothetically getting rid of it, which is probably more likely to happen in the grand scheme of things.
I'm not looking beyond a removal of that. I've honestly been waiting for it to get removed for a long time. Not just because I think that they can do something different in that. I like aerodynamics. I do not like steeplechase. It's just not a ride I like. And I think I've stuck with that opinion since I first went on it. I just don't find it very enjoyable. I just think it's quite boring. And yes, there is a fear factor to it, with, like you say, with just having a seatbelt at those heights. But for me, it's not for me.
I think that is the only ride in existence where I actively tighten the seatbelt over what it's been already done up to. It's the only ride in existence where when the operator checks it, I'll pull it a little bit tighter on myself again. Every other one, I'm like, I've been pinned here.
Yeah, whereas that one, it's like, please keep the tightness coming.
Pull it, keep pulling it.
Yeah, definitely. If there was an out of context PBE Twitter page, there's quite a few quotes already that I think. So I think we can pretty much say that wraps it up for Steeplechase as well. You'd modernise it, I'd bin it. And I would replace it with...
And on that bombshell.
And on that, yeah, pretty much. To be honest, an RMC single rail is an option for that. It probably, they haven't got the best capacity, but it does have better capacity than Steeplechase. But I think of all things going forward, if Steeplechase was to be removed, I do feel like it has to be replaced by something. I wouldn't like to see it removed with nothing in it going in its place.
Yeah, it has to be.
That'd actually really frustrate me.
A replacement or multiple replacements.
Yeah, it's
multiple smaller replacements.
It's just one of those things where you think, all right, I don't like the ride, but if they're not replacing it, but they're just going to remove it, that would be frustrating. Yeah. Whereas I'd be quite happy to see it replaced with something else, but not removed
if you take
for the sake of removing it.
If you take it out as well, take the station out. That's a very big station.
Yeah.
You can easily fit a smaller ride at the front and something behind it there.
I do remember someone from Pleasure Beach saying on one of our events in a Q&A session that when people used to say, oh, Pleasure Beach, you've got no space, the way that Pleasure Beach look at it is if you can get a station and you've got access to all the ride area, you can build a ride. Because if you can build a station, you can build everything else over everything else, or around it, under it, like they did with Icon, like they did with the big one, like they did with Infusion, squeezing it into the log flume space. If you can get a station down and you've got access ways to it, you can build a ride. Exactly. So that's one of those things, really. But like I say, if I wouldn't like to see it removed for being removed, safe. I'd like to see it replaced. There's been a lot of rides removed from Pleasure Beach over the last 20 years that have never been replaced. And another alternative is if perhaps Pleasure Beach do remove Steeplechase, but they go and put a roller coaster where the Bolodrome is, that's a good compromise. A bit like, okay, the Wild Mouse going is a sore subject, but it was one out, one in. And I remember hearing a while ago, again, on one of our event Q&As, that is perhaps the way that Pleasure Beach will go with coasters in the future, which is a shame because they are going to lose the joint record of most coasters in the country soon, because Towers are going to be opening a new coaster. Flamingo Land will open a new coaster in the next 5 years, I'm certain of it. Hopefully Pleasure Beach will, to at least keep on a par with those parks, because they held the record for a long time. Towers have caught them up. Flamingo Land have caught them up. It probably won't be long before Thorpe catches them up, to be honest. So hopefully they'll stay somewhere near the top. But yeah, that's again for another day. And you never know, they might have the most big wheels out of all those parks. But you never know what could happen.
What, one?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think anyone else has actually got one in the UK at the moment, have they? Unless you count Kingdom in the Clouds at Southport.
They're that notable, I can't even think about which one. But yeah, I think that brings us to the end of this video, doesn't it, really? So if there's anything you would do with the Grand National, the River Caves, or Steeplechase, or any other rides at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, please let us know in the comment section. Before you go, also in the video description is a link to the Clamshell Awards. Please vote for Pleasure Beach Experience as the best established channel, because we clearly are. So yeah, please vote for Pleasure Beach Experience, and hopefully we'll be celebrating a victory with you. We won't, Jack will win. but yeah, let's see how it goes. So many thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next PB video.